Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up. Yes, I'm always fired up when I have my co-host Madman Mancini on with me. Mark, welcome to the big show.
Oh, I love this show. You know it. The experience, the knowledge, the breakdown of cities and all the stuff on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. What else is there, brother?
That's it. And for those of you that want to subscribe, it's very easy. Okay, go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, and please hit the subscribe button. And then you'll be able to get to see all of our shows on there. Mark and I do this once a week, as well as all the numerous broadcasts that I have. And before I go any further, once again, I'll repeat, go to youtube.com and look for South Florida Tribune and kindly subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Also, Fire Up can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So you can hear us whether you're in the subway, whether you're on your bicycle. Of course, nowadays, who knows if you're on a bicycle, if you're in a cold environment, whether you're in the train station, whatever, you can find us all over the place. So with that said, tonight we take ourselves over to the San Francisco, Oakland Bay area. But we're going to lead off with one here with Barry Bonds. So, Mark, the $1 zillion question is, will Barry Bonds ever get in the Hall of Fame? He didn't get in with the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee. Well, so, to me, they sent a message. They're not putting any steroid people in like Roger Clemens, Rafael Palmeiro. We know the book on Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. They never even got that far in the first place. But I think the one thing before I turn over to you, Mark, is Barry Bonds had a bad relationship with the media. And that didn't help his cause. Whether he would have gotten in or not, time will tell. And I'm sure if you ever asked him, did he wish he had a better relationship with the media, he probably might have rethought that a little bit. I know one thing. When I saw the Giants take on the Marlins, and the Marlins went on to win that World Series that year, I went into the Marlins clubhouse. I had the opportunity to ask Bonds questions, but turned it down. So I chose to stay with my hometown team, the Marlins. And, of course, they subsequently won the World Series. Turn it back over to you, Mark. Will Barry Bonds ever get in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I like to think he will. I mean, I had the opportunity when I first got into broadcasting in the summer of '96. And, it's been a blessing ever since. And I know the first time when the Giants came to San Diego, people were basically saying, that he's an a-hole, he's this, he's that, he won't get him. And I think the biggest thing that I had a feather in my cap, that is, I was a Pittsburgh boy, born and bred there.
Right.
And, that helped that, I basically saw this guy come through the pirate system.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, he might beat to his own drum and people might not like that, but I haven't seen a more feared hitter growing up that would go on the road and just, you'd go there to see him launch balls in the upper deck. And I think the only other players or team that was right up there with him as a feared hitter or a feared team was the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 70s during batting practice, when they'd be, you'd have to get there for batting practice to watch them launch balls. But if you're not going to put Barry Bonds in, you're not going to put Roger Clemens, you're not going to put Pete Rose. This is guys with Cy Youngs, home runs that led the leagues. The most the career hitter in baseball. Then why the hell is David Ortiz in this thing?
Yeah, right. I know you're not the only one.
Why is Bud Selig in this thing? This is where my problem lies. If you're gonna if you're gonna look at it and you're gonna go, we're not gonna create a gray area here. It's just black and white with these three guys. Then how come there's gray areas with these other two guys?
Well, the only
problem with that.
Well, the only response I'll give you with David Ortiz is he was a very likable guy. And they say, apparently, from what I remember, that his test was, I think, leaked anonymously, or there was a little bit of a problem in the way it handled. But regardless of how it is, and I want to make that the focal point of this conversation, okay? So I want to preface that. He got along with the media. And they always say, Mark, the old adage, don't bite the hand that feeds you. And he bit it, and he bit it a lot. Remember, reporters have a degree of vengeance is what they have. And, we're out here to go ahead and, to me, get a story to make sure that we can do. Now, I do want to mention one thing, although it's not related a lot, okay? I'll mention it a little bit in terms of relationships between coaches and media, but this is a situation that occurred in a Tampa high school. I won't divulge the name. I won't divulge anything else. I don't want to feel like the wrong individual will get wind of this. It's just the way the media operates with coaches, especially at the high school level. But before a game, a ladies' game, I told this woman, the head coach, listen, okay, regardless of the outcome, win or lose, okay, I'm going to need your help. And you know what? Her team got hammered pretty good, and she wouldn't give me the time. I told her she wouldn't do it. So you know what I did? Remember, though, I'm working for the Tampa Tribune, Mark, okay? I'm getting paid per story, and I'm getting two out of this thing because two for the price of one. You did the game story, then you did the follow-up story. She didn't do it. So what did I do? I got to the assistant coach, and I got a player. And when they thought I misquoted the girl, my editors have said, I'll be more than happy to go ahead and play you the tape. No, we believe you because I developed a reputation at the time, Mark, that my editors trusted me. So the moral of the story is this: don't bite the hand that feeds you. You better cooperate. And if you have problems, now let me add to this: I proceeded to hammer this woman nonstop, so to a point where she nearly resigned because I got mad. Okay, and I said, and I warned her, and I crushed her 2, 3, 4, 5 stories at a time. To a point where she got the message. She did stay on when the media pressure, which was me, cooled down, but I was just making a point. So now getting back to the Ortiz thing, you got along with the media. Barry Bonds did not.
Well, and the flip side of it too is we've all been in locker rooms, Scott, and I've been in locker rooms and I covered the Padres for 3 years in the Tony Gwynn and Caminiti days.
Right.
And let me tell you something. You get some of these reporters going up and asking Tony Gwynn why he struck out 3 times in a game. Right. I mean, you got to expect a negative comment coming your way. I'm not saying, they're not doing their job, but if they're trying to sell newspapers and they don't care how they sell it, then I think they're disrespecting the player in some regards. And to me, Barry Bonds was never an a-hole to me. I can understand why he could be an a-hole to somebody else. Maybe it's the phrase of the question. Maybe, they just get a perception that they put out there. Hey, everybody has a bad game. Everybody has a bad day. And if you're in some of these markets, whether it be LA or New York or Chicago, sometimes you'll see 15, 20 guys. Sometimes if the Philly team comes in or New York or a Florida team comes in them cities, they got a lot of beat writers coming in there and they're trying to get, whatever it takes to sell that paper. And I can understand to a certain point, but I'm not going to sell out a relationship to sell a paper because I understand where it's coming from, that you're seeing these guys when they come in here in the city. If you're covering the hometown team, that's the last thing you want to have is a Caminiti or a Finley or a Gwynn saying, oh, here comes this jackass again to get an interview. And I'm not that guy. And I've seen it with some guys.
Right. Well, you know what I've learned too, whether it's covering the bad boys, the Pistons, the Detroit Tigers before I came here to Miami, is you do the best you can to be fair and talk to the players. And I work with Don May. I work with so many people that's the list goes on and on. So I don't want to take away from the whole meaning. You develop relationships. I have a personal rule myself is I do not like to go to after game interviews because I think it would be too easy to second guess. I've done a lot of that with the NFL. That's why I give you a 10, 12, 15-minute cooling off period. And the Miami Hurricanes obviously had more than that, but because obviously it was a college environment. Point is you're in the business to develop relationships. I don't need to sell a paper that bad. I want to make sure I'm fair and objective. That's how I was taught in the news business. 5 W's and 1 H. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Because life, Mark, is simply all about relationship building. And now I like the Pittsburgh version of Barry Bonds because he was a good stolen base threat as well as a home run threat. But then when he went to San Francisco and got on the performance enhancing drugs, we obviously saw a notable difference in his body and the list goes on and on. But the reality is so let me, before we go to our next topic, so give me one more. Please answer this one more time so people that are just joining us are hearing it for the first time. Do you think that Barry Bonds will ever get in the Hall of Fame?
I think he will. I think he will. I think Pete Rose will. I think Roger Clemens will, because people will understand what they're contribute to the game and everything. and they put people in the seats, and they made baseball money. So to me, I think baseball was on a threshold there in '94,
Right.
and the big slogan was "Chicks dig the long ball." Bud
Right.
Selig, to me, threw everybody under the bus. He was sitting in the car when they were robbing the bank, and he basically said he had nothing to do with it. He didn't know what they were doing. That's BS in my part. Bud Selig should be held accountable for the demise of baseball in '94. He should have stood there and flaxseed oil and all this androstenedione was perfectly usable in clubhouses back then.
Okay, and my answer to that, Mark, is I say he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame because I know how the voters are, and I know the integrity of baseball people, that they felt it was against the rules and it was called cheating. But you know what? It's good that we both have separate opinions on that.
America's built on second chances, so
Mhm.
we give people, some people get 3, 4, 5 chances. So I look at it like this: why can't we give these guys another shot?
All right, well, that's true. But the one now, having been to the Hall of Fame recently, just because they're not elected in the Hall of Fame doesn't mean their artifacts didn't get to the Hall of Fame. So, in the Hall of Fame, for a lot of you folks that haven't been there before, bear in mind it's one of the best historical museums on the planet. I encourage you to get there, and also check out the South Florida Tribune. We did a lot of great little videos that are in our archives about the Baseball Hall of Fame. But yeah, I mean, their artifacts are there. It's just whether they get inducted is another story, and depending on the year and all that. Well, he won't get another shot for 3 years, so we'll leave it. We'll end it on that note. All right, let's go on to our next topic, Mark. Okay, is the Oakland A's future in the area a foregone conclusion that they are moving to Las Vegas if a stadium situation isn't resolved in 2023?
Well, I'll tell you this, and I think it's a foregone conclusion they'll be out of there. But I don't care what the Giants and Dodgers did coming from New York to start their cities in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Nobody's put a city on the map in California like the Oakland A's 72, 73, 74. I mean, mustaches, uniforms, cheap ass Finley there, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I've been blessed enough the last few weeks to interview Gene Tennis and Joe Rudy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Those guys have definitely, doesn't matter what the Giants and Dodgers have done out here in California. They haven't done much other than the Giants winning maybe 3 titles, or the Dodgers haven't won a title in playing a full season in 4 decades almost.
Right.
But nobody's competing with the Oakland A's in the 70s, 72, 73, and 74. And I will tell you, you match that team up in the 70s, you can match it up probably with the Reds and the Pirates and the Phillies and stuff. That was unbelievable, to say the least. And it's sad to see this team on its way out. I'm surprised a local investor doesn't step up and keep the team in the city, because that's a lot of tradition moving out of Oakland. The swinging A's, baby.
Yeah, and what people don't fail to realize, hello, Will Vogel, we appreciate you chiming in here. But what I want to say is Billy Martin actually saved them when he worked with Charlie Finley, because there was a time when that team was headed to Denver, and obviously with Marvin Davis, the oil man, and luckily Billy Martin made him competitive with his Billy style of baseball running, as well as using his pitchers and wearing them out. But there's no question they have their fair share of World Series titles, and the A's are a rich tradition. But it is a foregone conclusion that, let's face the reality. Rob Manfred has already said you can leave whenever you want, and now they're waiving the relocation fee. So when you waive the relocation fee, Mark, if that's not a foregone conclusion, you tell me what is. But yeah, it is a shame. But they do need to get a stadium built, and they need to make a decision by May. Otherwise, you know what? It's anybody's guess. Although I have a feeling.
Well, let me tell you something, Scott. 55
Yeah.
years in a city, and you're going to carpet bag it completely out, and they probably will go to Vegas. But if Rob Manfred's standing there saying, well, we're going to waive this and waive that, obviously this guy doesn't care about tradition that was born in this city. That's a lot of tradition in the city. And I got to see Billy Martin bring those guys that he burned out for about 200 innings, and Mike Norris and Rick Langford.
Right.
And McCaddy and all those other guys. So I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Well, you know it or not, though, Mark, I worked with Billy Martin when he was managing the Yankees here in Fort Lauderdale at the old Fort Lauderdale Stadium. And you want to know a very interesting irony? This is really crazy. Okay, you ready? Billy Martin died on the same day that I suffered a severe ankle injury skiing in Vermont. So anytime everybody asks me when Billy Martin obviously died. All I need to do is say, this is the year I busted up my ankle on my last run of the day at Magic Mountain in Londonderry, Vermont on Christmas Day. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
Billy
mean,
Martin.
but anyways, that's for
But you
another.
know what? Leaving Oakland and just to throw those three things out: the swinging A's, the white shoes, the
Right.
colorful uniforms, the mustaches with Raleigh fingers, the swagger with Reggie Jackson. Boy Almighty, that's tough to swallow.
Well, every time you lose a team with a great deal of tradition, it's tough to swallow. But in the end, though, Mark, everything is all predicated on they're playing in the Oakland Coliseum. It's falling apart.
That
And
thing should
then,
have been built on the waterfront years ago.
well, that's true. Okay. And now they're trying to do it now. So, excellent point. But the reality is their stadium is falling apart. They need another one. If they can't get in Oakland, what do you expect them to move to do without, despite the tradition? I'm with you with the tradition, but like anything else, you need a new ballpark of about 35,000 with a fair amount of luxury suites and go from there. So they're pretty much on a deadline from what I understood. Okay. Recently, Mark, May is when they're hoping to get it figured out. Otherwise, it could be curtains. All right. Well, now that we've talked about the A's, one last thing I want to get to, and this is a bit more of an upbeat kind of deal, is let's talk about Brock Purdy. Obviously, that's one of the biggest storylines in the National Football League. Mr. Irrelevant, as we all know, is Mr. Irrelevant is now Mr. Relevant. But here's the thing. I've mentioned it on a couple shows, including our show on Sports Talk Saturday with Bruce Kessinger. This guy played 4 years at Iowa State as a quarterback. So anybody who played in a Power 5 conference that's drafted 262 means that the 49ers scouting and personnel department does an outstanding job. Think about what I'm going to say to you, Mark, before you comment, okay? A quarterback was picked with the last pick of the draft at a Power 5. Think about it. And before you comment on it, what I want you to know is that Brock Purdy is 22 years old, and he defeated Tom Brady, who's in his 23rd season, 35-7. Now, I've thrown a lot of cannons at you, Mr. Mancini, okay? But to me, a Power 5 guy as a last pick, that's pretty good scouting, man. All right.
Well, let me fast forward this to back in Tampa days when I think it was Jameson Winston went down, and I think Sean King stepped in,
Right,
took them all the way to the NFC Championship game before they came up short. So this is a nice story. I got to see more of them. But I've always said, in order to survive in the playoffs, you're going to need a running game. So, and they got a running game in Christian McCaffrey there.
Right.
The 49ers are clicking on all cylinders. They've won like 6 in a row. They'll probably make it 7 in a row tomorrow night or Thursday night against, the Seattle Seahawks. But when you look at this team, you could stick you or I back there and we can hand the ball off and throw dink and doink passes. 49ers got a hell of a defense. I don't know how far they can go matched up against these guys, but I will tell you this. If they match up against Tampa again, I don't think you're going to beat Tom Brady 2 in a row. So good luck beating them once. I don't think they're going to beat them twice. But the real problem here is you got to blow Lance out of there. He's not the quarterback. The real quarterback is Garoppolo. The players love him.
Right.
When he gets better, this guy will keep the seat warm. Garoppolo, if you keep Garoppolo there, that is the guy. I should have known years ago when they should have drafted Pitts from Florida and never went after Trey Lance, but they went after Trey Lance. And that was the year after, basically Garoppolo took him to the Super Bowl. And they went and drafted a quarterback. Stupid on their part. But Garoppolo's the guy there. This guy will keep the seat warm. If this guy's going to give you a Super Bowl, I need to see more of them.
Oh, of course. I mean, obviously, we know markets are a minimum sample size. But think about this for a moment. Okay, ready? Number one, they're on their third quarterback, period. You started with Lance out for the year, right? Garoppolo kept them in this thing for a while, so they're even in a position they're in. And Brock Purdy's come out of nowhere to keep it going. Yeah, is he game manager? You know darn well that's the case. But come on. I mean, what I'm going to tell you there, Mark, is the fact that you have exceptional scouting, even find this guy with the final pick, let alone a season guy that's played at a Power 5 conference. I'm a firm believer, Mark, that to me, the best quarterbacks you can find out of college are the ones that have played 3 or 4 years, and not the early ones. I think the Trey Lance pick was a mistake myself. It obviously hasn't. I mean, how many games did he play at college? Not that many. I mean, one season and then a showcase game. So, but you know how you combat a pick like that, Mark? When you have a very high pick, I think second overall, you get it right with the 262nd pick. And then as a result, you kind of get a little mini mulligan there. I mean,
Well, the other flip side of that is, too, I'm not sold on guys like Trey Lance, Tua, Kyler Murray, Fields in Chicago, or the Zach Wilson in New York. My whole protege of a quarterback is the Mac Jones in New England, the Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, pocket passers that can see defenses. That's what I'm after, like Pickett in Pittsburgh. These are the kind of quarterbacks, and I will tell you this draft coming out next year is going to remind us of 1983.
Wow, that speaks high. And I'll follow with you on that one. I'm a pocket passer person myself. I watched Howard Schnellenberger at University of Miami in the 80s instill a pro style offense. So, you will never get a debate with me on that. You really won't, because I've watched enough football like you have over the years too. Think about it, Mark. Covered the Dolphins, covered the Lions, Jaguars. Okay. So,
well, and not only that,
hold on, and let alone cover some drafts. So I got to talk to more football coaches. Go ahead.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you got to look at where these guys played their college and learned under him. One's learned under the Dansby Swanson. The other guy, the guy over there, Clemson, Lawrence learned under. The other one learned under Alabama with Saban. Now he goes to Belichick. These guys, you talk about experience and absorbing it like a sponge. Dabo Sweeney and Nick Saban, your college coaches, and then taking it, and now you're learning under Doug Peterson, who knows how to groom quarterbacks, and Bill Belichick.
Yeah, that was a home run hire for the Jaguars, by the way, knowing that you have Trevor Lawrence, so you don't ruin the guy. He literally said, Trevor, here's the deal. Pretend 2021 did happen. You might as well take the only thing that you could gain out of that was your paycheck and be glad and it cash, because you know what?
These guys are decade quarterbacks, my friend.
Yeah, but let me tell you, Mark, okay, it's like I can tell you right now, and I read the transcripts from the Jaguars, just so you know. Okay, might be a good idea for you to read them once in a while when I send them your way, albeit I know you're very busy. But when you read these transcripts, you'll learn a whole lot. So, all right, you know what? We're going to unfortunately have to transition over to a sad note. I hate doing it, but it's part of our business. All I can say is rest in peace, Mike Leach, age 61, died of heart problems. Here's a guy that had the air raid offense, and you talk about a very creative individual he never played college football whatsoever. A creative individual, a very humble individual, knew the game of football. They say quirky, and he just died at the age of 61 way too soon, Mark. I'll talk about a guy who was an offensive genius, and he took his quirkiness to what? Washington State, Texas Tech, and now Mississippi State. 61 years old, not fair. Rest in peace, Mike. Take it from there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, he kind of did things like, I'll take a slogan out of Frank Sinatra, did things his way. And that's what I liked about him. He had his own swagger going. Right. A lot of people didn't, you could say whatever they wanted about him, but man, I'd more than run through a wall for a guy like that.
Yeah, you know what? Me too. So there's no way I wasn't coming on this show without mentioning it. And by the way, folks, following Fire Up, Inside the Pigskin will be on after our show here tonight. Hope you can join us. Our crew is going to be Jordan Long, Rick Purdy, Mel Farr, Candy Ebling will be joining me, and we'll talk about some of the latest topics we have. Obviously, I work with Madman Mancini on Sports Talk Saturday with Bruce Kessinger. Enjoy doing that. But, Mark, like I said, we have a lot of plans in 23 how we're going to continue to see the show grow. And I know that with the guests that you come in contact with, we're going to continue to add new wrinkles in 2023. And I'm looking forward to see who we can bring on here so our audience can benefit by that. But rest in peace, Mike Leach, gone way too soon. All right, Mark, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Well, XM 203, Sirius 217, great group of guys over there, Fred Wall and Artie Source and the guys. WWDB AM 860 out of Philadelphia with Marianne Costello, Sal Tartaglia, Pittsburgh Pirate Podcast. This wonderful show I do with you on Tuesdays.
Right.
I mean, I'm blessed, man. That's all. Money comes and goes. Relationships are priceless.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a ditto on that since that's one of your favorite words on your text messages, ditto. Well, maybe we'll even hashtag word ditto every time you're on a show. Anyways, let me give you our information again, just so you know. You can go to www.southfloridatribune.com. That's our website. That's everything you need to know. Fire Up can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on Twitter at Tribune South. And you want to email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And as I mentioned to you before, go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, kindly subscribe, and then you'll be able to get not only the streams that we do here, but also a lot of the videos that we do on site, you know, for the events that we cover. So we have a lot of things. I have a lot of new shows coming in to 2023 that I'm looking forward to getting going as time goes on. But I certainly, what I like about working with Mark, and eventually, I guess, it's the fact that you have two guys that are in their 60s that can appreciate old school sports as well as new school sports. And while I enjoy a lot of the people that I work with, I have to tell you, when you work with an individual like I have across the country in you, Mark, it's very refreshing to know that we've seen a lot and we're going to see a lot more before this is all said and done. So meanwhile, once again, I'll say it for one more time in case I spoke too fast. Please subscribe to the South Florida YouTube channel by just going to youtube.com and kindly hit the subscribe button. And then you'll see everything we've got visually anyways. And of course, I've already gone over the audio. No need to repeat myself again. We have a lot here. And a special shout out to Candy Ebling, who does a marvelous job keeping this thing all together. But Mark, really enjoyed it. Glad we had to take a dive into San Francisco, Oakland sports, Target, and with every topic that we had on here, I thought was very timely and important. I'm glad we were able to address each and every one of them. So, with that said, on behalf of Madman Mark Mancini, my name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Man. Well, thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up. And coming up just a little bit here, we'll be inside the pigskin. We're looking forward to talking all football. And today we were able to get a lot of things done across the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area. So with that said, okay, thank you very much for joining us, and we will catch you on our next episode a week from now. Good night, everybody.